Hey, what's up guys? It's Reed Young, aka Shuda here. I'm going to be reviewing a five-handed game where we have a $100 buy-in game with a 20-cent ante. So we're very deep in this hand, and that is kind of the topic of discussion here. I posted a video a while back. I'll put an annotation up above this video that you guys can click on later after this one. But it was a deep stack hand where we had a ton of options, and the original poster of the hand was having a bit of trouble figuring out what to do with his hand, and more importantly with his range. So I think deep stacked, you get a lot of options and a lot of lines that people aren't really used to seeing, but with understanding of some general poker concepts, you can definitely extrapolate your game plan to areas that maybe you haven't seen, a few thousand times, like raising a hand pre-flop, where we all have a lot of experience doing that, and any mistake that pretty much most middle stakes players are going to be making are very, very small in comparison to something that can happen deep stack. Consequently, a lot of the better players like to play deep stack hold'em because their edge is going to be a lot bigger. It's definitely one of my favorite variations of the game. So all that said, let's jump into this hand. So I guess I'm not really sure what this means when he says fish with infinite big blinds. I guess maybe he's joking around or something. But you can see that we are almost 280 big blinds effective with the button, and we're in the big blind. Our history is that we have an aggressive pre-flop dynamic with the big blind, or I'm sorry, with the button. If you guys can hear that jingling, that's just my dog flying around the living room next to me here. So we call a button raise in the big blind with 8-6 suited. I think it's a fine play, especially this deep. It's going to be tough to say that a hand like this, where you're not really worried about domination as much, is going to be a tough hand to play. You're going to flop pretty huge, or have a decent idea of where you're at. So if we flop like a pair of sixes only, it's not like we're completely married to the hand and we have to check call every single bet 3 times. Also, it's going to give us a lot of potential for check raising and putting a lot of pressure on our opponent, which is especially difficult to do with a balanced range with stacks this deep. So and that's because we probably don't want to be as aggressive with one pair hands, since our opponent has a lot of room to raise us off of our hand or play very well with implied odds in position. So we call in the big blind. Like I said, I think it's fine. We check the flop, which it could go either way. You could lead here. I think you create kind of a similar position that we create by check raising here, which we do. I think the sizing is a bit small, but it's kind of one of those things where we're not exactly going to be able to threaten stacks that well by the river, just because it's not like we're going to make it 40 on the flop and start bombing the turn and river from there. So there's some sort of inflection in there somewhere where you could increase your flop check raise size to be able to threaten stacks later, but like I said, I think we're too deep to do it here. So the button bets 5 into 750, nothing really remarkable there. We make it 17, the same, not much remarkable there. Then on the turn, after we're called on the flop, we decided to bet 29 into 42. I think that's a fine size, and we're again called. I think betting is the better option than checking, because every once in a while we'll be called by a worse hand, something like 5-6 or 5-4, maybe ace-5 of clubs, something like that, and we can get some value from our hand here. In addition, it's just better than checking and putting ourselves into a kind of tricky reverse implied odds spot, where checking would seem to indicate to our opponent that we have a hand like ace-7, something like that. And maybe we do have a balanced checking range in situations like this, but I just think that if we're looking at this hand specifically, that our opponent's going to play pretty well against our check. So if he does have 9-8, he'll probably value bet it twice, and that's something you can think about with other portions of your range. Maybe you want to check raise the turn with some hands to combat thin value bets, and maybe we can get our opponent to fold something like, 7-8 that he might try to go for 2 streets of value with on the turn. A similar other thin hand, because once we check, our range seems like some sort of combo draw like what we have, in my opinion. And like I said, it's just very tough for us to have lots of combinations of strong hands, especially on this board where the straights are 5-3 and 8-5. So neither one of those is particularly likely. So I do like the bet on the turn. 10-8 gets there. That's probably, just as much in our range as it is our opponent's range. Probably slightly more in our opponent's range, since maybe we don't flat all offsuit combinations of 10-8 pre-flop. So we bet, our opponent calls again, and we check on the river 4. Our opponent bets 77 into us, and we're trying to figure out what to do here. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for a check raise bluff on the river, because I don't think our 6 is good often enough to call. So really the only thing we beat is a hand like ace-5 that's now turning itself into a bluff. Even then, it doesn't make much sense to call the turn unless it's like very specifically like ace-5 of hearts, ace-8 of hearts. So we beat 2 to maybe 5 combinations if we want to be generous with the types of draws he's playing this way. Maybe he plays hands like Jack-10 of clubs this way. So there could be some error in his range compared to the times he value bets. But like I said, I think against a check on this board texture, our opponent's going to play pretty well. So even if he had a hand like ace-9 of clubs, I think he could value bet it pretty confidently and thinly. And so a great way to combat thin value bets is with value raising. And we definitely want to be value raising here. I would say, the worst hand that we could value raise would be any 4 and expect to put our opponent in a difficult decision with a hand like a 9. And you might be thinking like, oh, hey, well, what 4s do I have here? And like we said at the beginning of the video, it's going to be tough to put your opponent in situations where you're going to throw a lot of pressure on them deep stacked. So I think great hands to do that with on the flop are stuff you may not be comfortable check calling with 3 times, but they do have a lot of equity. So stuff like 4-5 falls right into that category. And it doesn't seem like to our opponent we might have a lot of 4s. But also check raising on the river, I think we could throw in hands besides 4x, any straight, and then obviously any full house or a better hand like that. So I think it is very possible that we're taking a river check raise line, and also if we were bluffing with a flush draw, it's much more likely that we would just bet out. So from our opponent's standpoint, it seems much less likely that we're just giving up on a bluff by the river with something like a naked flush draw, and then check raising the river. It just doesn't make as much sense, because a lot of the times the river is going to go check check, and then if we did have a hand like Queen Jack of clubs, we would lose to something like 6-5 and feel like an idiot. So another good point for check raise bluffing this hand is it's one of the weaker hands with showdown value that we'll be checking on the river. So it's really like the bottom of our range if you think about it. As if what I said about betting hands like Queen Jack of clubs holds, which I think is a good default plan, like we definitely want some air in our river betting range, it stands to reason that we would like to check the hands that have showdown value. So if the river does go check check, maybe we do beat ace high some percentage of the time with a hand like this, or we chop with a hand like 5-6. On the river 4, we definitely beat fewer hands, but I still think that this is going to be one of the weaker hands that we should be adding to our river checking range. I guess one of the stronger semi-bluffing hands, and non-check raisable for value type hands. So I think a check raise bluff is a fantastic play here. We also block 6s, so 6-4 is less likely, and pocket 6s are less likely. So that's definitely a a few combinations out of our opponent's value range that we're blocking, and I think that makes it a bit more likely that he's just value betting a hand like 10-9 here, and I think we can get him to fold all nines by check raising here. Maybe he doesn't ever fold a straight, but I think that's fine. So let me know what you guys think about this game plan, and if you could, I would really appreciate you sharing this video with a poker friend, because I always get messages on Twitter and Facebook like, oh hey, I love the videos, but then I throw up a video and we get like 4 likes on it. So I would really appreciate it if you guys can click a few buttons for me, since I'm clicking some for you guys here, but I would definitely appreciate it, and it's a lot of the reason why I'm doing these videos, just to be honest with you guys. So if I do get shares, it definitely keeps me motivated to keep putting out decent content for you guys. So let me know what you guys think about the check raise bluff on the river. I'll see you in the comments section, and if you have any questions or suggestions for a hand that you'd like me to review, definitely hit me up in that comment section too. Alright, later guys.